Spider-Man No Way That Just Happened. Let's start with a spoiler-free review, and afterwards I'm gonna spoil every single second of that movie, but I will let you know when. So I can already say that Spider-Man is the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film in the MCU, and that is without a question. It was filled with emotion, the action was great, the villains, oh my god, were magnificent. It was a well-written story, but of course it has some flaws. It was by no means a perfect film. The dialogue of every Marvel film nowadays, it's not the best. It's not written very well. The dialogue, especially when it comes from Peter Parker or Zendaya's character or Ned, even Doctor Strange, it's not good. It had a lot of stupid jokes, as with Dr. Ogg's name, like, is that your real name? That was very stupid. Doctor Strange telling Spider-Man and his friends to Scooby-Doo that shit was very stupid because it doesn't make sense. I mean, you're a wizard. Why don't you Scooby-Doo that shit yourself? You're more than capable. I was afraid that Doctor Strange would kind of overshadow Peter Parker, but that wasn't the case. I think he was the right amount of time in the movie, and it was well made. I'm still not a fan of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but I must say Tom Holland gave a great emotional performance in every scene. At the beginning, the movie in general was a little slow and he was the typical hyperactive Peter Parker, but as the movie went on, he really turned into a good Spider-Man, and his performance deserves all the praise. I think he did a very good job, which actually made me like him a bit more, and by the end, he was not a full Spider-Man in my opinion, still a Spider-Boy, but by the end of the movie, he did get a good character development that brought him from a Spider-Boy to Spider-Man. Well, we're not there yet. I need to see the next film if there is one, but he is going in a good direction. All in all, I think this was a great film and you should totally see it in the cinema. If you cannot see it in the cinema, as I couldn't because in some countries not everybody are allowed, but if you can't find a way, you can. I believe in you because this movie, I cried, I loved, I laughed, I went through every stage of every emotion. It was great. It totally deserves the hype. Actually, it exceeds the hype. Obviously, there was fan service, but it was done well because fan service can have a good purpose, and this film did have a purpose to all of the nostalgic things and the fan service and everything, and I really loved it. So now guys, we're at this moment where I have to spoil everything, and I will spoil probably everything. So if you don't want to see any spoilers, turn around right now because in a second I will be spoiling everything. So are you ready for spoiler number 1? Daredevil fans rejoice! Not only we got Kingpin in Hawkeye, which I'm kind of afraid that they're gonna mess up, but still we got Kingpin in Hawkeye, we got Matt Murdock, the devil of Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil himself in the MCU with Spider-Man, and I completely love that. We get this scene very early in the movie, and when I saw his cane, I was like, oh my god. I absolutely love that scene. I love Matt Murdock. He totally owned the scene. He overshadowed everybody. I loved it. He has such a good stage presence. He has so much charisma. He was so good when he eventually caught The Rock and said, I'm just a really good lawyer. I was like, oh my god, you are. I really loved it. He was so calm and he was such a contrast to Peter Parker's hyperactivity. He's always like super energetic and jumping around, and Matt Murdock is super laid back. You know, he's older, he's wiser, he's just good, he's better. I love him, and I'm so excited to see what the future brings, you know, with him in the MCU. And now let's talk about what you all waiting for, Spider-Man or Spider-M with an E, because we got not one, not two, we got three Spider-Man. And actually I just learned that in the last scene in the cafeteria we got a TV Spider-Man, so this was the ultimate Spider-Verse. So let's start with the king of all Spider-Man, Tobey freaking Maguire. I cannot say and describe what I felt. I just stood there in shock, you know. I had my hands over my face and I was just there like crying. And when I saw him there stepping out of the portal and saying just hey there, like he was so calm, he was so collected. I think that this was the ultimate Spider-Man, you know. He knows what he's doing. He was like kind of a mentor to not only Tom Holland Spider-Man but also to Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, because he is the OG. And to see him so collected and so well written and so calm, it was such a contrast to his franchise 10 or 20 years ago. In every scene it was perfect. It was amazing, it was excellence, and putting him there wasn't just pointless fan service. Like every time he would tell a story, it had a purpose to make Tom Holland Spider-Man relate to him and rely on him, and him talking about Uncle Ben and his MJ, and it was really beautiful. When he saved Tom Holland Spider-Man from killing Green Goblin, it was such a good scene. Like nobody said a word and it was beautiful. Like no words needed to be said. And this is one of the things that is missing nowadays in films. Like everybody are talking and it doesn't mean anything, and sometimes silence is more important than words, and this was so well done and I loved every scene he was in. He was like a big brother to Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and Tom Holland Spider-Man, because he is the OG, and you could totally feel that the writers also knew that he was the OG. He is the Spider-Man, and I absolutely love that. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was never my favorite. I actually watched his movies just 2 weeks ago and I did not really like them. I don't like him as Spider-Man, but hands down, he was the heart and soul of the third act. He gave such a good performance. It was so emotional. It was so well written. It was Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, but a bit toned down, and it was good. It was just good. The way he saved MJ and the camera focused on his face, all the emotion that he was going through, it was priceless. He gave such a good performance, and I'm in love with Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in No Way Home, because he went through all the emotions in these 30 minutes. And the parallel, as I already said, to Gwen Stacy's dad was really done beautifully. It was done so beautifully, the way he jumped in, because he was relieving that this MJ would die the same way that Gwen died. It was perfect. I don't know what else to say. It was just pure perfection and I loved it, and Andrew Garfield did an excellent job. He was even better than Tom Holland and Tobey, because he had a stake kinda in all of this. He's the most depressed Spider-Man. Well, now Tom and him have to fight for the title of most depressed, but it was the most damaged Spider-Man so far, and he did an excellent job. I loved it. As I already said, Tom Holland Spider-Man was never my favorite. He messes things up, then complains about it, and it's like, just don't mess things up. He's still Spider-Boy. I don't know if he's Spider-Man now. I don't really think so, but it's fine, you know. He's still a kid. He's a bit cartoonish. He's still funny. Not my favorite, but I must say, as I already said at the beginning, he gave an amazing performance. I really loved it. Every emotion, every line he delivered was done in a very heartfelt way, and I really loved it. And talking about Tom Holland's Peter Parker and his character development, the way he sacrificed himself towards the end so everyone else can, live, and all these creatures from other planets that we saw in the sky, so he can prevent them from entering, was just well done. And it was very good character development because he was selfless. He wasn't thinking about himself, and he was becoming a man, if I can say that. He was becoming Spider-Man at last, and thinking about the fact that he doesn't have anyone was actually really heartbreaking. It was very sad and kind of depressing, and I don't know, I'm excited to see where they go from here because I cannot really imagine what they can do. But that last scene with Zendaya and him, and she doesn't recognize him, was just sad. It was very sad. But I don't know, I'm just excited to see what they do next. And again, this was a good Tom Holland Spider-Man film. He did a good job. At the beginning I wasn't sure, but he did a good job. Eventually he became emotional and just a good, decent Spider-Man, I guess. We'll see. The three Spider-Men together, apart from the visual epicness that we got, I mean, the three of them swinging and being on top of buildings and fighting together and just hugging at the end, it was beautiful. Their costumes were all great. Tom Holland's costumes were amazing. I think their interactions were very well done. I think that the dialogue between them most of the time was well done. The three of them have insane chemistry, especially Andrew and Tobey Maguire. The two of them have, wow, undeniable chemistry. Them sharing stories about MJ and Uncle Ben and finishing the line with great power comes great responsibility was, I thought it would be, cliche, that it wouldn't land well, but it did. I really loved that. The jokes were kind of funny, but also kind of not. I don't know. The Avengers joke, the Thanos joke were kind of funny. I like that. Toby was like, wait, I'm still on the space part. What is the Avengers? Because it shows how different each Spider-Man is. And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man talking about how amazing the amazing Spider-Man Andrew Garfield is was so cute. It kind of maybe felt a bit forced, but I think that it's also kind of in tune with Tobey Maguire's character, so I'm gonna let that slide. Andrew cracking Tobey's back was weird, awkward, but I will let that slide too because both of them are weird as well, so I'm just gonna let that slide, as I said. Tom's and Andrew's fascination with the spider webs from his wrist was so funny, and it was weird because, yeah, I mean, how do you do that? He didn't even explain it himself. It's just naturally, and it was funny. I really loved the three of them interacting together. They had crazy chemistry. Talking about the villains in the movie, they were all of them great. I think they all kind of got their time to shine, and Dr. Ock at the end, he became the good guy. He saved the day. I really loved that. Him meeting Tobey's Spider-Man was so wholesome. This movie, the third act especially, was so wholesome, even at the beginning where all the villains met in the dungeon. When they were talking to each other, like they had respect for each other, and Green Goblin and Dr. Octavius meeting was so cool. They have so much respect and everything felt so natural, and them wondering about magic and stuff. They all have so much charisma and chemistry, and it was priceless to see that. As I said, seeing Spider-Man and Dr. Ock together, like being like, hey, how are you? It was so weird because Dr. Octavius is a good man, and he proved it, and I really loved him because in the end of Spider-Man 2 he also became good. Like, he sacrificed himself. I love that. I love their meeting. I really love what they did to Dr. Octavius, and the de-aging was great. Green Goblin being the main villain was also unexpected, but it was well done, and I really loved him because he was even more evil than he was in the Spider-Man 1 movie. I really loved this Green Goblin. He was given so much depth, and he was so emotional, and he was scary, and he was great. I think that every character in this movie was just great. Max was just being Max. I don't have much to say about him. He was great. He was also like a main villain, and I understand his motivation, and I'm fine with what they did to him. I think it was good. I don't have much to say about Max, as I don't have much to say about Lizard and Sandman. I think both of them were fine. You know, you cannot, in 2 hours, you cannot give everyone, you know, their own story and their own thing, because there's not much time. I mean, you have 3 Spider-Man, you have so many villains, you have side characters, so it's understandable, but it was great to see them all together. It was really, truly great. And talking about fan service and the villains, I think their characters were great, and again, they didn't feel forced or superficial. Like, they fit right into this universe, into No Way Home. I think it was very well done. I think there was so much heart and soul put into this movie, and you can totally feel that every character was treated with respect. Well, I mean, there was a joke here and there, and that's just the Marvel thing, but apart from that, especially the Spider-Man were treated with so much respect and dignity, and I absolutely love that. And also the villains were treated the same way, with a lot of respect and dignity, and it was fun to see them in the apartment all together talking, and in the dungeon, and it was just something I don't think we will ever see again. And of course, there's some things that I didn't like in the movie, but that didn't prevent me in any way to enjoy this movie, because it was great. As every film, there are flaws, but these flaws didn't, as I said, didn't do anything bad that I rolled my eyes or anything. But let's talk about it. I mean, Aunt May. I didn't understand why May wanted Peter to save everyone. I mean, he was kind of out of his league, because these are super villains, and for her to put Peter in that situation where he has to feel responsible for them didn't make a lot of sense, and he could have basically died. I mean, it was kind of felt forced so the plot can happen, but at the end of the day, it was kind of stupid. Her dying, I understand now why she died, so Peter can become fully Spider-Man, because obviously in the first film, Uncle Ben died, then in the second film, also Uncle Ben died, and so they can embrace their destiny, and they can, you know, be responsible and become who they truly are. The jokes were not okay. I mean, asking Dr. Ock if he wants salt water because he's an octopus was just stupid. Like, it kind of slowed the thing down, but I was let it slide because the movie was great, but the jokes, some of them were just out of place and not unnecessary. Not everything has to be funny. Again, Doctor Strange making the kids do his job was stupid. It made no sense, and why would you do that? Peter Parker's friend Ned becoming supernatural, magical out of nowhere was there for some reason. He now can do magic for some reason. I don't know. It is what it is, but okay, not everybody has to be magic. So all in all, Spider-Man No Way Home was great. I don't know any other words to describe what we just saw, because I think everything was well done, especially the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's part, and Tom Holland gave an amazing, undeniably amazing performance. You could feel the emotion, you could see it with your eyes. Andrew Garfield was phenomenal. I loved him. I really loved him. There were so many great scenes with Tobey and everybody. I watched so many audience reactions, and everybody are just screaming and laughing and crying, and it's a great film. I don't know if it's on the level of Endgame, but I think it's up there. I think it's just a different thing, and I think it was amazing. I absolutely loved it, and it was so emotional. I was just, when Tobey stepped through the portal, I was just standing there like, oh my god, I was crying. I was literally like, I was crying. I couldn't move for the next 30 minutes until the movie ended. I was in shock, and I loved it. I really loved that they actually went there and they brought in so many people, and it wasn't crowded. I don't think it was crowded. You had so many characters, and usually with a lot of characters it kind of feels crowded, but it was great. I don't know what to expect about Peter Parker's future because now they all forgot him, and I don't know, but I'm excited. I hope they continue on making good films because it wasn't the most perfect film ever, but it was good. It was great. I enjoyed it, and I hope you did as well. And do let me know down below what did you think of Spider-Man No Way Home, and I will see you in the next video. And as always, may the force be with you.